For much of my life, when it came to horror games, I was like this. But now I'm more like this. So in the spirit of Halloween, I wanted to showcase some lesser known horror games. Just note that not all of these games are horror as in scary and more just horror themed, because sometimes you want Halloween, and other times you want Halloween Town.
Hey kid, I don't appreciate stereotypes like that, alright?
Racism. Anyway, let's get started.
This is your office. This is your partner's office. Communication is vital. Good luck.
If you watched the original Saw and thought, wow, what a beautiful story of camaraderie under duress, then first off, please share the ecstasy with the rest of the class, and second, you should play Death in Unison. It's a cooperative horror game that's essentially Five Nights at Freddy's if it was good. You and a friend are assigned two separate positions in a questionable security prison and have to work together to juggle a handful of tasks and fend off various inmates. Make too many mistakes, and you get a sternly worded email from HR in the form of spontaneous combustion. Wait, what? Failed chow order? Constant communication is key, as both roles need information from one another for your work duties, but more importantly, to survive. If the lights go out, admin needs to relay a code to security to get them back on. If there's a creepy dude at the window in admin, they need to call for security to close the right shutter. And if one of you dies, the other is basically screwed.
Sam?
That being said, Death in Unison has a very smooth difficulty curve, with the first few shifts being light on hazards to give you ample time to practice your work tasks while being slowly introduced to each of the inmates, who get more and more dangerous as the game progresses. What starts with simple hands grabbing you out of vents and a guy doing his best Brainy impression, oh my god! Quickly escalates to being chased by Weeping Angel cosplayers and Hellspawn coming out of the floor. Each has their own distinct oral or visual tells and straightforward solutions to deal with them. However, things get complicated when multiple inmates decide to show up at once, which is most of the time. This game is not afraid to go random bullshit go on you and really make you think on your feet and stay vigilant. Sometimes the lights go out just as T-Swift shows up and you gotta guess what shutter to tell your partner to close. But most dastardly of all, this game will absolutely mess with your head trying to figure out the correct names for people, so much so that you'll be shouting letters back and forth like you're exchanging email addresses with your grandma over the phone. Overall though, Death in Unison is a great co-op game that's bound to have you and a friend screaming in shock as much as laughing at each other's expense. It's a pretty tense experience that really tests your ability to stay calm under pressure, one that asks you to stave off literal demons while serving up burned sloppy joes. So basically, it's the life of a school lunch lady. House of Necrosis feels like a spin-off game that time traveled from the 90s and somehow ended up in 2025. And my god, if it ever makes a return trip, please take me with it. It's basically Resident Evil Mystery Dungeon, and funny enough, it's actually the first Mystery Dungeon type game I've ever played. You play as a lone survivor stuck in a mysterious forest mansion. And I know what you're thinking, I also can't believe they ripped off woodland mansions from Minecraft, and have to explore and survive randomly generated floors populated by monsters and bosses that think you're ugly. Unlike most roguelikes though, you're able to use a certain item to leave the dungeon at any time, keeping whatever loot you found for future runs at the cost of resetting your character level. If you die, you lose everything you were carrying. It's a very precarious risk-reward system that ironically made the stakes feel much higher compared to other roguelikes I've played. Trying to decide whether to keep the momentum of a good run going or to cut my losses and bail made for an interesting consideration to keep in the back of my mind while giving zombies lobotomies via Morningstar. Each floor is populated by increasingly difficult enemies with a boss battle on certain numbered floors. There's a surprisingly healthy variety of baddies to bop, and each has their own quirks and behaviors that will give you an edge if you account for them. Zombies, for example, take 2 turns to perform an action, allowing you to kite them with your melee weapon to save ammo. There's also several flavors of consumables that are plentiful enough to encourage you to utilize them as much as possible. The best though are the grimoires, which permanently unlock powerful spells that can be used once per run and can really come in clutch in emergencies. Turning an entire room of tough enemies into a murder of crows and then murdering those crows so they don't murder me is a huge highlight that never got old. Pair all of this with a solid randomized loot system and you've got yourself a delicious dopamine-infused dumpling going on. Word to the wise though, this game can be pretty tough. One wrong move can easily snowball into a death, and while beating a boss unlocks a key that allows you to skip their respective sections of floors, losing some of your best gear can effectively lock you out from being able to make meaningful progress in later floors, forcing you to farm earlier floors to gear up again. It can be pretty punishing, and if you get careless and don't have any backup gear handy, you can potentially find yourself all the way back at square one. And speaking of squares, segue bitch. My only major complaint with House of Necrosis is the lack of variety in the floor layouts. Each floor is just a series of square rooms with 1 tile wide hallways connecting them, making every section feel interchangeable aside from the differing textures. The other elements of randomization help make up for this, but it still would have been nice to have some variety in the tile sets. Also, just know that this game very much plays like a game from the 90s in terms of menuing and inventory management. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave up to you. Regardless, given that I only stumbled upon House of Necrosis while searching for another game and then proceeded to play it for 5 hours straight right then, it's a pretty good time. I'm surprised it took me this long to finally play something within the mystery dungeon genre. I guess it just goes to show you that you can slap a Resident Evil aesthetic on pretty much anything and I'll be into it. Particularly if it has RE5 Chris Redfield, because my man be punching boulders that would make Sisyphus blush. Crowded Followed is a bit of a weird recommendation for me, as a lot of these short analog horror games are pretty much a dime a dozen, and many YouTubers have already played this game on their channels.
Was that the bite of 6, 7?
That said, I want to talk about this game for one simple reason. It scared the shit out of me. What the f- A common theme in a lot of horror games is isolation. Hell, it's literally in the title of some games. Crowded Followed, however, completely flips that dynamic on its head by putting you in a situation where being alone would be preferable to the massive crowds you have to navigate through trying to get away from the undead NBA first round draft pick that's chasing you. Nobody but you can see this entity, and thus instills an ironic sense of loneliness despite being shoulder to shoulder in a dense crowd. What makes this even more terrifying is that the monster can shapeshift and disguise itself as a member of the crowd, leading you to feel more paranoid than the song by Garbage. If you want to be as immersed as possible, I'd recommend playing the game on hard, as it removes the audio cues that let you know the monster is near. It's an overall dynamic that I've never experienced in another horror game, and one that I enjoyed so much that it's pretty much the only reason I'm including it in this video, as the gameplay itself is pretty one note. The core mechanic involves managing your stamina with your inhaler to outpace the monster. The inhaler, however, needs to be shaken like a baby to be used, and our protagonist is brought to a complete stop while doing so, as we all know the jerk and jog is a forbidden technique that not even the most audacious gooner dare attempt. This is all well and good on its own, but the problem that quickly manifests is that the monster never stops chasing you, and while this persistent pursuit still elevates a sense of tension, it unfortunately makes things predictable. There's very little guesswork in determining the location of the monster outside of the start of a level, and I found that a bit disappointing. I felt it would have been more interesting if the monster occasionally backed off and turned into a different crowd member at a different position or something, to give me a feeling like I was being hunted rather than just relentlessly chased like I just posted pics and thigh highs on Twitter. All that said, Crowded Followed still achieved what I imagine a lot of horror games set out to do: make me scream in agony to the point that my neighbors probably thought I was passing a kidney stone. If you're looking for a short and sweet horror game to give you a couple of good scares, I'd say give it a go.
Blech.
In direct contrast to being in dense crowds, we have Interior Worlds, a liminal space photography game that is somehow just as comforting as it is creepy. I've never really been into the whole liminal spaces thing, but after playing this game, I gotta say,
Oh my god. I get it.
after stopping at a gas station and naturally wandering into traffic to French kiss a front bumper, you stumble upon an ominous door and a mysterious camera sitting within. You then explore a series of different environments, from a derelict subway to a vacant hotel and other equally desolate locales, taking photos of various anomalies to open the exit to the next area. The interesting thing here, though, is that there are no immediate stakes to push you along. There's no time limit, no obstacles to speak of other than a few simple environmental puzzles, and there's no weird creatures or monsters to worry about. Well, not any that attack you anyway. All you do is explore and take pictures, which probably sounds pretty boring on paper, but it's actually quite compelling. Being able to go at your own pace really lets you soak in everything each level has to offer. Like, I can't think of another game where I flicked on a TV and then proceeded to watch an entire episode of Looney Tunes.
What am I doing?
Being obsessively observant is heavily encouraged, as this game has so many secrets and Easter eggs that I don't think it's possible for any one player to stumble upon all of them without a guide. That being said, the number of secrets I uncovered organically felt genuinely surprising given how obscurely some of them are hidden. There's one particular secret in the suburb level that not only threw me into a laughing fit, but also really impressed me with how intuitively I found it despite how subtle the clues were. It really goes to show how far good level design can go, and I'd say any developer trying to craft good Easter eggs and secrets for their game should take notes on how Interior Worlds hides its own. Aside from simply exploring, though, much of the fun in Interior Worlds comes from the photography aspect. I found myself taking many more photos than just the ones required to proceed. Looking for photo ops became just as compulsive as looking for collectibles, and playing with the depth of field, angle, and different filters gives you just enough tools to flex your creativity. By the end of the game, I felt compelled to get some of these pictures printed to make a little collage, something to hang on the wall and help me pretend like my film degree isn't worth less than the paper it's printed on. Finally, I just want to give props to Interior Worlds and how it manages to be creepy without being particularly scary. The sound design in particular does much of the heavy lifting here, with a solid selection of ambient tones and the subtle differences in sound depending on the environment. There are occasional paranormal happenings going on, but they're few and far between, and refreshingly not of the jump scare variety. It's somehow uneasy without feeling tense, sharing the qualities of both a dream and nightmare alike, and that's kinda neat. From my limited understanding of liminal spaces, that seems to be some of the feelings they're meant to invoke, and if that's accurate, then this game absolutely nails it. Overall, Interior Worlds is just a very unique game that punches well above its weight in how engaging it is, despite basically just being a walking simulator with a camera. I'd say it's the perfect game to play if you want some scares without the Freddy Fazbears. And before you go to the comment section and point out that Jacksepticeye played this game already, I'd like to remind you that the Irish are not real and were invented by General Mills to sell sugary cereal to children. Alright, moving on. HorrorVale, not to be confused with a similar nickname for your mom's house, is a traditional RPG that is a celebration of all things spooky. You play as Alice, a stout skeletal witch on a quest to rescue her dog Scruffy after he runs away from home, leading to an underworld-spanning adventure that I'd say is top tier and one of the best games I've played this year. The game pretty much plays it by the book as far as genre conventions go: turn-based combat, XP, level ups, the works. But what makes HorrorVale special is just how unbelievably well realized it is in nearly every other facet. The world is charming, full of characters that are brimming with personality, especially the numerous party members you'll accumulate during your travels, which, like, holy shit, there are so many of them. What's even more impressive about this huge roster is how fleshed out each character is. They all have their own unique quests that are just as, if not more engaging than the main story. They all sport their own set of artwork, battle animations, dialogue, and even environmental interactions that you likely won't see all of in any one playthrough. And this cornucopia of companions gives you an endless number of options in terms of party composition, with each character sporting different abilities and playstyles that can drastically alter your approach to combat. Some characters specialize in dealing big damage or tanking, while others are more utility or support focused. Experimentation is heavily encouraged thanks to a shared party level that ensures you never have to grind to level up new or less used party members, which I heavily appreciate as someone whose first Pokemon experience involved trying to beat the Elite Four with only an overleveled Blastoise and 2 level 3 Pidgeys. It did not go well. I can't think of another game of this type that sports such a sheer volume of playable characters. It's really cool and easily one of HorrorVale's highlights. I'm also just really appreciative of how whimsical and silly this game is. I feel like its sole purpose is just to make you smile, whether it be from laughter or just from being so damn cute. The character designs and art direction alone makes seeing one of the many CGs fill my brain with happy juices just as much as getting a new piece of gear or level up. There's also a lot of references and tributes to horror media of all kinds, like your party member Jekyll, whose alter ego is Chad instead of Hyde, a Slenderman knockoff that likes to stand there menacingly, a reference to my old college frat, and even a whole-ass playable character based on the Dancing Pumpkin meme. The amount of locales and situations you encounter also just really makes you feel like you're on an adventure. From finding the hidden Pumplin village, to spelunking in the candy mines, to saving a skeleton rock band kidnapped to another dimension. You're never in one place or doing one thing for too long, and this is all the more insane considering I'm at the 10-hour mark and roughly like a quarter of the way through the game, maybe? It might be a bit presumptuous to be singing this game's praises before I finished it, but all I know is that the first time I heard the critical hit sound go, I knew this was going to be a good game. My only complaints with HorrorVale are minor but still worth mentioning. One is that I wish there was a way to increase game speed for combat or an option to skip battle animations. Consecutive combat encounters can really start to be a drag sometimes, and it would be nice to have the option to expedite things a bit. My other issue is that, my god, there are so many different items and potions that I get choice anxiety just from opening my inventory. I can't even remember what most of the stuff does at a glance except the wiki consumable that clears confusion, just because it's funny. Overall though, HorrorVale is just a fun, festive time that's not only a great game for Halloween, but just a great game in general. It doesn't reinvent the wheel as far as RPGs go, but it does display a level of carefree imagination and creativity in its world and story that makes it a worthwhile experience. You might think it looks like a baby game for babies, but if that's the case, then I'm Alec Baldwin with a loaded diaper. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Hopefully there's something here to help you enjoy the scientifically proven best holiday. And if not, boo! That's not me being cute, that's me being upset with you. Get out of my fucking face.